Lucas had long made peace with solitude. Years ago, he traded the noise and routine of town life for the unpredictable rhythm of nature. His cabin, tucked at the edge of a sprawling dry forest, was more than shelter, it was escape. Out here, time didn't tick, it breathed. That night, the wind carried something different. The dry season had silenced the woods. Crickets had ceased. Even the owls stayed quiet. Lucas sat near the window, nursing a chipped mug of black coffee, when the low sound reached him. It wasn't the howl of a coyote. It wasn't the grunt of a wild boar. It was a deep, aching groan, drawn out, ragged, not quite human, but not entirely animal either. He froze. The groan came again, closer now, scraping against the stillness. Lucas stood slowly and reached for the old rifle mounted by the door. He didn't like killing, but out here, hesitating could mean dying. He loaded the weapon with a practiced hand, stepped onto the porch, and waited. Then he saw it, under the pale glow of the moon. A massive lion limped into view. A male, its mane matted and patchy, soaked in blood and dirt. Its golden eyes shimmered with something Lucas had only seen in dying men: surrender. The lion didn't roar, it didn't bare its teeth. It stumbled forward, collapsed near the porch steps, and let out a hoarse exhale, almost like a sigh. Then it went still. Lucas raised the gun. His finger hovered over the trigger. But those eyes, they didn't threaten, they didn't beg, they just looked tired. A long silence stretched between man and beast. Lucas felt it, not fear, but recognition. This wasn't just an animal on the edge of death. It was something else, something broken. He lowered the rifle. All night, Lucas sat by the window, watching. The lion didn't move. Once, he thought it might be dead. But then its side rose. Slowly, shallowly, barely breathing. By dawn, he still hadn't slept. Lucas walked out with a bowl of water and a chunk of dried meat. He placed him a few feet from the lion's head, then backed off. The lion didn't stir. Lucas waited. An hour passed, then two. Eventually, the lion shifted, dragging itself toward the bowl with a guttural moan. It lapped at the water weakly, ignored the meat. Lucas stayed on the porch, silent. The sun climbed, and heat poured over the earth like punishment. Flies gathered. The lion didn't flinch. Late in the day, Lucas moved closer, slowly, cautiously. He crouched a few feet away. "What the hell happened to you?" he muttered. The lion opened one eye, then closed it again. Lucas saw the wound, deep claw marks along its ribs, some still oozing. Its hind leg looked twisted, likely broken. Something had torn into this creature with brutal intent. Another lion, a poacher's trap. There was no way to know. He couldn't let it die like this. He didn't know why. It just felt wrong. Lucas didn't try to touch the lion. That would have been suicide. But he worked around the edges. Each morning, he mixed powdered antibiotics with scraps of meat, rabbit or leftover venison, and left the portion near the lion. Then he sat back on the porch steps, waiting. The lion wouldn't eat while Lucas watched. Not at first. But when Lucas disappeared behind the door or turned his back, The food would vanish. The wound didn't fester. That was a good sign. Every evening, Lucas crept a little closer, pretending not to notice how the lion's ears twitched with tension. He never made sudden moves, never stared too long. The forest was full of unspoken rules, and trust had to be earned in inches. Days turned into weeks. The lion stopped growling when Lucas approached. Then it stopped looking away. One morning, Lucas placed the meat and didn't retreat. The lion looked up, studied him, and, slowly, ate with Lucas just a few feet away. That was the turning point. The dry season broke, but the cold came fast. The nights grew bitter. Lucas added extra firewood inside, then noticed the lion curled tight beside the porch, its frame shivering under the open sky. He hesitated, then went to the shed, dug out an old canvas tarp, and returned. "This is all I got," he said softly, voice steady but low. He unfolded the tarp and approached. Slow as ever. The lion didn't move. Lucas draped it over the animal's back and stepped away. For a moment, the lion's body tensed, then eased. That night, Lucas didn't feel alone. It wasn't comfort. Exactly. It wasn't safety. But it was something alive out there in the dark with him. Breathing the same air. Fighting to stay alive just like he had once done. On the 11th night, clouds covered the moon. The cold cut sharper than usual. Lucas stood at the window again, watching the lion shift restlessly under the tarp. Its breathing was labored. Then, to his surprise, it tried to rise. Front legs locked. Hind legs trembled. It got halfway up before collapsing, crashing to the ground with a strangled sound. A sound that cracked something open in Lucas. He didn't think, he just moved. In seconds, he was by the lion's side, kneeling in the dirt. The lion didn't react, just stared into the distance, as if ashamed to be seen this way. Lucas reached out, but stopped short. He crouched lower, speaking to the ground more than the lion. "I know what that's like," he said. His voice was hoarse. "To try and stand, but your body won't let you. To feel like something inside's gone missing." The lion blinked slowly. Lucas exhaled, cold air fogging in front of him. "I couldn't get up either. Not for a long time. Not after I lost her." Silence stretched out like a wound. The lion's breath was uneven, but steady. Lucas didn't move. He just sat there beside it. The old tarp rustling in the wind. The forest whispering around them. And for the first time in years, the night didn't feel like an enemy. It felt like a witness. The infection came without warning. At first, Lucas thought the lion was simply tired. Healing takes time, and it had already come so far. But then he saw the swelling, the angry red tissue around the rib wounds, the sluggish movements, the meat uneaten. Pus oozed from the old claw marks. The lion's sides rose in short, shallow gasps. Its eyes, once alert with pain, now seemed dull, fading. Lucas crouched near it, a knot tightening in his gut. He knew what this meant. If the infection spread to the bloodstream, the lion wouldn't survive the week. He scoured his supply chest. Most of the veterinary medicine had expired years ago. The town clinic, where he once worked, had closed down long before he left. Still, in the back of the drawer, he found it, a vial of injectable antibiotics marked with a faded red sticker and a warning, "Do not use after 2021." It was all he had. He ground the last of his dried meat into a paste, drew the cloudy liquid into a syringe, and injected it straight into the mix. It was a gamble, a bad one. But doing nothing wasn't an option anymore. That evening, a storm rolled in. At first, it was just wind, but within the hour, the sky darkened, and the world turned gold with dust. Sand whipped through the trees, howling like something alive. It pressed against the windows, seeped into every crack. Lucas stood at the door, hand on the knob, watching the lion. It was trembling again. The tarp flapped loose around it, useless against the cold grit blasting across the clearing. The lion tried to crawl beneath the porch but collapsed, its body no longer cooperating. Lucas cursed under his breath, then threw the door open. Inside, he stripped the rug from the floor, laid it down just past the threshold, then dragged over a threadbare blanket and dropped it on top. He turned and locked eyes with the lion. He stepped back into the house and gestured, hand low, voice soft but firm, "Come on." The lion didn't move. Another gust of wind slammed into the walls, rattling the glass. The fire in the hearth spit embers. Lucas walked to the fireplace, stoked the flames higher, then knelt and waited. The lion watched. Then, slowly, agonizingly, it moved. One leg at a time. A drag. A pause. Breath wheezing. Lucas stayed still. When the lion crossed the threshold, Lucas didn't flinch. He just slid the door shut and stood aside. The lion collapsed onto the makeshift bed, body curling toward the heat. Its breathing was labored, but something had changed. Its eyes, though glassy, were no longer filled with fear, just exhaustion and trust. Lucas sank into the nearby chair, resting his arms on his knees. He looked at the creature lying feet away, its massive frame reduced to a trembling shadow of itself, yet still alive, still fighting. Outside, the storm howled on, but inside, beneath the crackling firelight, something fragile had survived, something more than a truce. The storm didn't ease. For 4 straight days, the sand screamed against the windows, howling through the cracks of the old cabin like it wanted in. Visibility outside dropped to nothing. The world became dust and noise. But inside, time moved slower, warmer. Lucas worked quietly, steadily, like a man rebuilding something he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. He soaked clean cloth in boiled water, dabbed at the lion's matted fur, lifting away dried blood and dirt, pausing every few minutes to let the creature rest. The wounds no longer oozed pus, just shallow scabs now, raw but clean. Lucas applied a mix of crushed herbs and antiseptic from an old tin, patting it gently over the skin. The lion would flinch but didn't growl, didn't pull away. The silence was no longer tense. It was familiar. Lucas started talking, not much at first, just murmured updates about the weather, the firewood, the rations. But by the second night, he found himself speaking like he used to, before everything fell apart. I used to tell stories," he said, sitting near the hearth while the lion dozed, tail flicking lightly beside him. "To Anna, my wife. She loved the stupid ones. The ones where nothing really happened but people just kept going anyway." The lion didn't respond, but its ear twitched. She always believed things got better, even when they didn't. He leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling's water stains. "After she died, I stopped telling stories. Figured if no one was listening, what was the point?" A pause. The fire popped. "But I think you're listening." So Lucas talked. He told stories from his youth about fishing trips gone wrong, bar fights in dusty towns. One time he tried to raise a goat and got headbutted every morning for a month. He talked about Anna, the way she laughed with her whole chest, the way she hated rain but loved storms. The lion didn't move much during those 4 days, but something in its body softened. Its breathing deepened. The sharp edge of pain dulled. And slowly, its eyes changed. The haze lifted. Not all at once, but enough for Lucas to see the spark again. On the third night, while the wind still battered the walls, Lucas caught the lion watching him, not with fear, not with wariness, but with something else, recognition. By morning, the storm was gone. The sky broke open with a golden kind of quiet, the kind that makes you forget wind ever existed. Light poured through the window in soft angles. Dust danced in the beams. Lucas opened the door for the first time in days. The world was covered in a thin film of sand, like a burial sheet, but beneath it, life stirred again. A distant bird call, the smell of dry grass. Behind him, the lion shifted. Lucas turned just as it planted its front paws against the floor. Wobbly, careful. Then, with a low grunt, it stood. It didn't move fast. Every motion was deliberate, strained, but it rose tall, its frame leaner. Scarred, but alive. Lucas stepped aside. The lion walked to the doorway, paused with one paw against the threshold, and sniffed the air like it was inhaling the whole world. Then it stepped out. Lucas followed slowly. The lion walked several feet into the clearing, raised its head, and filled its lungs. The mane caught the morning light. Its chest rose, held, then released. It turned to look back. The eyes were clear now, bright, fierce, but not wild. The two of them stood there, man and beast, wounded and waiting, caught in a moment that felt too big for words. Lucas swallowed. "If you have to go," he said, voice soft. "I understand." The lion didn't move. "But if you stay," Lucas took a breath. "I'll be here." The lion watched him, unmoving. Then it blinked, once. Slow, and turned its gaze back to the horizon. Lucas didn't know what that meant. Maybe nothing. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel the need to know. He just stood there, beside a scarred lion and a new morning, and let the quiet wrap around them both. The morning light came soft and silver, filtered through the trees like memory. Lucas opened his eyes to silence. No rustling, no breathing near the hearth. Just stillness. He sat up, heart already sinking. The blanket near the fire was untouched. The cabin felt larger somehow. Emptier. Lucas stepped outside. The sun had barely risen. But already the clearing looked different. The sand had settled. The grass had begun to return. A single crow called from a distance, as if noticing what Lucas already knew. The lion was gone. No roar, no farewell, not even a paw print in the sand. It had vanished like fog, like something dreamed. Lucas stood at the door for a long time, hands at his sides, throat tight. He searched the tree line, scanned the ridge, even walked out to the old path near the creek. Nothing. Just the forest, just the breeze. The absence hurt in a way Lucas hadn't expected. Not a sharp pain, just a hollow, like something had been scooped out of him quietly in the night. He returned to the cabin, sat in the chair by the hearth, and let the silence sit beside him. It stayed for days. There were no more late-night breaths beside the fire, no cautious eyes watching from the corner. The cabin creaked the same way it always had. But it felt different now. Like it remembered. Lucas didn't speak much, but he didn't close up either. He left the door open more often. Left meat out once or twice. Just in case. Eventually, he stopped. He never stopped listening, though. Seasons turned. The rains came months later, early, heavy, and full of life. The forest came back to itself in bursts of green and birdsong. Trees that had gone brittle turned lush. Streams ran fast again. Lucas was gathering herbs near the southern trail when he saw it. A paw print. Not fresh, but clear, deep, broad. A lion's. Next to it, smaller prints. Lighter. A different gait. Cub tracks. Lucas crouched, fingers brushing the soil, his chest clenched. Not from pain, but something deeper, a throb of understanding. The lion had survived. More than that, it had lived. Had gone back to the world. Not as a shadow, not as something broken, but as something whole enough to create new life. Lucas didn't cry, but he smiled. Barely. A flicker. He returned to the cabin, went to the back wall, and stared at the space above the hearth. Then he took his tools. It took hours. He didn't rush. He carved each letter with patience, like the act itself meant something. And when it was done, he stood back and read the words out loud. Once, just above a whisper, it came to die, and left carrying life. I am no longer alone. The wood held the words like a promise. Nothing flashy, just true. Lucas sat down and lit the fire. The crackle filled the cabin again. The silence wasn't as heavy anymore. It was part of something. Part of the memory of breath, of pain, of healing, of the unspoken bond between two creatures who had nothing left, but found each other anyway. And even though the lion was gone, something of it remained, in the marks on the floor, in the scarred tarp by the door, in the way Lucas no longer turned away from the world. The lion had given him no goodbye, but it had left something more powerful, a reason to keep going.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.